We will start.
We are live.
We are very live. Welcome everybody to Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs. We just had a terrific hearing on tourism and the impacts and needs of tourism. And we're going to pivot to our liquor and lottery bill, 921. And we are, which we've had a walkthrough of and heard some initial testimony, but we welcome all of you. And today we are going to begin with Emma Arian, who's the Executive Director of the Vermont Brewers Association. So welcome, Emma. And then Jesse, you're on deck. We have two members of the Vermont Brewers. Emma, welcome.
Thank you all for having me. My name is Emma Arian, and I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont Brewers Association, or the VBA. The VBA was founded in 1995 to promote and strengthen the culture of craft brewing in Vermont through marketing, education, and advocacy for Vermont-made beer. We're a 501c6 nonprofit trade association, and our vision is simple: to make Vermont the premier beer destination. The VBA was founded by Greg Noonan, a name that carries a lot of weight in the craft brewing world. Greg was not just a brewer, he was a teacher, an author, and a true pioneer. In 1988, he opened the Vermont Pub and Brewery in Burlington and opened the state's first brewery. What's especially relevant for today's conversation is that before Greg could open those doors, the law didn't allow manufacturers to sell their beer on site. So Greg partnered with Bill Mayers, who was a state legislator at the time, to change that. Together, they rewrote the statute to allow on-site sales of beer made by the manufacturer. That idea made its way through the Liquor Control Board, multiple legislative committees, both chambers, and ultimately was signed by Governor Madeline Kunin. Today, every brewery in Vermont that offers a pint across the bar at their own facility was a huge debt to Greg Noonan and Bill Mayers for doing the hard and careful work of modernizing Vermont's Tied House, or three-tier laws, to reflect how small breweries actually operate. I share that history because Section 6 of H921 fits squarely in that same tradition. It's not radical, it's not about dismantling the system, it's about making a thoughtful adjustment so Vermont law keeps pace with reality and our neighboring states. Today, the Vermont Brewers Association represents 58 member breweries, which is over 90% of the breweries in the state. In 2024, Vermont's craft brewing industry had an economic impact of $460 million, produced 353,000 barrels of beer, supported 2,800 jobs, and once again, ranked number one in the nation per capita for both beer production and number of breweries. We're proud of that, but we're also concerned about where things are heading. Today, we're here to discuss Section 6 of H921, an act relating to alcoholic beverages. I want to be clear that this bill did not appear overnight. For the past 3 years, the VBA has been actively discussing self-distribution with our members to understand where the real problems are and where opportunities might exist. We've talked directly with brewers across the state, especially small producers, about what's working, what isn't, and what barriers they're facing getting their beer into the local market. As part of that work, we met with the executive directors of the Brewers Associations in both Maine and New Hampshire, where limited self-distribution already exists. We shared our proposal with the Department of Liquor and Lottery, with beer distributors, with the Wine Council, and with the Distilled Spirits Council. This has been a completely collaborative and transparent process. What we consistently heard from our smallest members is that they're struggling to get their product to market. And a major reason for that is consolidation in the distribution marketplace. Over just the past 2 years, 3 Vermont beer distributors have closed: Craft Vermont, Vermont Beer Shepherd, and just last month, Calmont Beverage Company announced its closure. That leaves 2 big players in the state, and I've submitted an article that was published from Brewbound outlining the struggles of the Vermont distribution landscape. When distribution options shrink, small breweries feel it first. As we'll hear from both Jesse and Darren, small producers simply aren't attractive accounts for large distributors when volume is limited. And even when a distributor is willing to take on a small brand, that brand often doesn't receive meaningful attention in an already crowded portfolio. Under current law, if a small brewery wants to self-distribute to local bars, restaurants, or stores, they have to create a separate distribution company with separate books, tax filings, insurance, and compliance requirements, and pay an annual license fee of about $1,200 just to deliver a relatively small amount of beer. Waiving the fee alone doesn't solve the problem. The real barrier is the structural burden of creating and operating a second legal entity. For very small breweries, that's simply not realistic. Section 6 of H921 addresses that problem in a narrow and practical way by allowing breweries to self-distribute up to 3,000 barrels annually under their existing manufacturer license. This is not about bypassing wholesalers long-term. It's about creating an on-ramp, a way for small breweries to build demand, grow intentionally, and eventually become attractive distribution partners. It's also important to understand that this proposal is self-limiting by design. Self-distribution takes time, labor, and resources. Approaching 3,000 barrels would be a major operational lift for a small brewery. That number is a ceiling, not an expectation, and most breweries would remain well below it. Vermont would not be an outlier in adopting this approach. New Hampshire and Maine already allow limited self-distribution under a manufacturer license, and both states continue to have strong wholesaler networks. Those systems have not been undermined. Allowing Vermont small brewers to self-distribute up to 3,000 barrels annually ensures that businesses are not placed at a competitive disadvantage in the region. At its core, Section 6 H921 is a modest adjustment that reflects the realities of today's market. It gives small Vermont breweries a realistic way to access local accounts, grow their businesses, and remain viable in an increasingly consolidated distribution environment while preserving the three-tier system. Vermont has a long history of making smart, careful updates to its alcohol laws to support small local producers. Section 6 of H921 continues that tradition. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Absolutely, David.
So why the 3,000 barrel limit? You support it, but with Maine at 30,000 barrels, New Hampshire 15,000 barrels. Why do you advocate?
We went to the House asking for 5,000 barrels, and we settled with 3,000 barrels.
Yeah, similarly, I don't know what the concern is, why it got down to 3,000. I'm fine with 5,000 or 15,000, but I don't know what the other side of that.
Yeah, thanks for the question. What was well, we could ask the House, but what was the concern?
We heard from a lot of small breweries that aren't making 1,000 barrels yet. We also heard from the distributors that felt more comfortable with 3,000 barrels.
Right. So we're going to hear from the distributors.
Yeah. So they're in support of this bill, but like the 3,000 barrel number better.
Right. And I believe one of the moves to more self-distribution is that we have lost some of our wholesalers who did craft brewery distribution. And with those losses, I mean, I know we still have I think we have two really strong distributors that distribute a range of product. But my understanding is that we have also lost some distributors who did craft brewery distribution, and that this is filling that gap.
Yeah, we've lost 3 over the past 2 years. And I submitted an article that was published last week from Brewbound outlining that. And the struggles of out-of-state breweries too, that don't have distribution in Vermont.
Right. David.
So yes, read through the bill, page 5, paragraph 4. Yeah, this affects malt beverages and wine. I know you represent the beer brewers, but why not cider? And I'm sure in your circles bump into the cider manufacturers. Why isn't cider in this bill?
Cider and wine can already self-distribute in a different way. So our bill is just malt manufacturers, and that's
oddly, David, there are different rules for every piece of this industry.
Again, but I see that we've added wine, right? We had beer, we've added wine. Why is cider missing?
I don't know the answer to that question. Hannah, do you have the answer to that question?
I do. Cider is technically
Introduce yourself.
Sorry, Shogun Liquor and Lottery. Cider is under wine manufacturers. They can do the direct ship permit.
Okay, so in the bill as drafted, cider's covered under this.
Yes.
Yeah, under existing statute, cider can already.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
It's the Bacchus provision. Any other questions for Emma? Right. How long have you been head of the Brewers Association?
3 years, but I've worked here for 4 years, and then I interned for a semester when I was in college.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
Oh, it's terrific. Well, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
I think we'll follow suit with Jesse Cronin.
10:25 again.
Jesse, are you joining us on, oh, you're right here.
Well,
Hi, welcome.
right. Thanks. My name is Jesse Cronin. I own and operate Lucina Brewing Company in Jericho, Vermont. I'm here today to express my strong support for H 921, specifically Section 6, which will allow brewers to distribute up to 3,000 barrels of malt beverage annually to the local bars, restaurants, and stores. I'm going to truncate my testimony somewhat. There's a lot of biographical information, which, while fascinating, probably we could brush over that for right now.
How long have you been a brewer?
Well, there's my story is not uncommon. I've been brewing for about 10 years, and I'm part of the Magic Hat pipeline. So I'm one of the brewers that I was working there for a long time. Worked my way up from packaging into production and into the brew house. When I left, I was the brewer in charge of fermentation and malt production, which sounds very fancy. And then suddenly you find yourself in your driveway loading stainless steel tanks into your barn under the skeptical view of your wife. So that's like sort of the path. That's the one I took. So that has some of that information is included. Just we opened in May of 2020, which was a hoot. And then in 2022, late, we in partnership with good friends of ours who own a cold brew coffee company, brew house cold brew coffee, purchased the old Jericho General Store on Route 15 in Jericho, right around the corner from Joe's. And from day one, our goal was twofold. It was quality and community. Those were the two things that we were trying to form. And I think over the past 3-4 years, we've been very successful with that. People can come in, they can get a delicious cup of coffee and a breakfast sandwich in the morning and chat. And in the afternoon, they can come in and they can get a delicious pint and a pretzel or a sandwich and some house-made mustard, and they can chat. And I think we've been successful in making that sort of third space for families in the Jericho area. One thing I want to emphasize, and I spent some time talking about that, is in the testimony, is that we at Lucina operate are very small. Well, we're one of the 5-10 smallest breweries in the state. If you've got my testimony in front of you, there's
We do.
a couple of pictures. The back part, one of them is a picture of me in front of one day's packaging. And the other picture is also of me inserted for scale at a day's worth of packaging down Zero Gravity. They were nice enough to send me the picture. I make about, it's about 90 gallons of what I could put out. It's about 30 cases. And down at Zero Gravity, the packaging in the same amount of time, which sort of breaks my heart, they could do 12,000 cases. Like it's as far as scale goes, it's I'm far outpaced. But that's my choice. That's just what we decided to do. It's important in this case because distribution to a certain extent is a volume game.
Yeah.
The margins on it are a little ridiculous. There's another sort of graph I have at the end that shows the breakdown of where the money goes when I sell a case out of our storefront versus when a case is sold out of a retailer. And when it's sold through a retailer, because it goes from me to a distributor to a retailer to a consumer. And at each section, money, everybody needs to eat. I clear like a 7% profit on something like that. And that's a combination of sort of industry standard. And first of all, that graph is specific to my experiences. I can't speak for other breweries, but I wanted to give an idea of how thin those margins are per case sales, especially through distribution. And when you're in a position like I'm in, where you're doing 30 cases a week and only 5 of those are available for distribution, to go through that process, it's basically an advertising budget at that point. So it doesn't make any money for me. It's not an effective use of my time, of the distributor's time. And it's not the best way to get beer to market.
So the cost, though, there's additional cost to self-distribute
So
in
this,
terms of, van and time. And
sure.
so, I mean, are you considering, and so the percent of your revenue to distribution, have you, because I see you have, the 7.3%, you obviously are gonna have to invest some in self-distributing unless you pool together and do cooperative distributing.
Right, which is not it's not part of the bill, like that, I don't believe it's, what the.
I don't know.
This additional
That's-
legislation.
I mean, couldn't you work together to distribute together?
I think that's a separate question that I think, because it's all sort of attached to the manufacturing license and under manufacturing license, currently you can't distribute at all. Under the new bill, you can distribute but only your own goods, as far as I know. But what I'm outlining is sort of the struggle to get a small producer to market through a distribution pipeline. Because you're correct that even if I were to self-distribute, there are costs that are associated with that. Time is not insignificant. Sales, transportation, all of those things, which I'm willing to take on, but not under the current legislation, not under the way laws are kind of set up now, because there is a $1,200 a year license that I would need to purchase, because there's a separate business that I would need to make, because the way the law is structured, I need to take my beer from Lucien Brewing and sell it to Lucien Distribution and sell it to retailers, and everything has to be on invoice. It's just an arduous process as it stands now. While there are increased profits per case through that route, it's not enough to really make it worthwhile for me. So I encourage the passage of this legislation just because that removes a lot of those roadblocks. Because now, instead of having to do that sort of funky pipeline, if there's a store, if there's a local bar that would love to have my beer on tap, they're right around the corner, they can call me directly under the new legislation, and I can sell them a keg, and I can run it over, and 45 minutes later, 40 grams. So that sets up. It's just a much smoother pathway, and financially, it makes much more sense for me as a small producer and for that retailer. Like Emma was saying, this really only works at sort of smaller scale. Once you get to a certain point, and I'm not 100% sure where that point would be, but that sort of where that 3,000 barrels sort of came from. I can't do that anymore, and I need to move on to another organization, a distributor that has that infrastructure in place and can do that much more effectively. Because if it's my 5 cases a week, which is currently when I have sort of extra capacity as far as what I brew and can be sold to other retailers or buyers from restaurants, that's very manageable for me. If and when I get bigger, and that's 15 cases, 20 cases, 40 cases a week, like that becomes a whole separate job. Like that's not, I don't have room for that right now. My family would be very upset. Like
You have no garage left.
No garage left at all.
Doesn't sound like you have much of a garage. at the moment.
No, it's a little, but it's, so like from my standpoint as a smaller producer, those are sort of the main impetus pieces to support legislation.
What do you see your revenue growing by with the ability to self-distribute?
So, projected, I'm sort of on that like 5 case a week number. I sell a majority of my beer out through our tap room. So we have the tap room that has the first class license. We can do pints. That has the 4th class license. We can do retail.
Even at the store, this is
the store. This is the tap. Have a manufacturing license. So all of that is in-house. From there, so most of my beer goes through, and that makes most financial sense for me to sell most of my beer through there. And I can protect it. I can ensure quality. I can conversations direct with consumers, like that's the best. I don't have a ton of extra capacity, but it sort of sits at 5-10 cases a week, depending on season. So, it's worth it to me to try and set up a relationship with a couple of retailers where those 10 cases go out and I can clear an extra $4,500, which for me is a big deal. That's like a full other day.
So it has a significant revenue impact for you.
But yeah, it has a significant impact on me. And I wanted to, that's why I keep sort of stressing the size, because because of the size that I am and because of the like pressures, downward pressures on that sort of revenue are sort of outsized, you know, for someone of my size. And that increase, while not overly significant in the scale of some breweries in the state, would mean a lot to me. Right. Probably. That is generally it. So I would encourage you to adjust the system and allow our breweries distribution paths that better suits all sizes while accommodating some flexibility, allowing us to distribute up to 3,000 barrels a year as part of a manufacturing license. Greatly simplify the system breweries use to get a limited amount of beer to market and in front of customers. Allow our breweries to deepen and strengthen relationships with retail partners, some of whom are struggling to meet distributor order minimums or struggling to stock a variety of product. Direct access to market would create the opportunity for small brewers to grow their brands, ideally to the point where they'd be attractive to one of the larger distributors, and provide small businesses with another avenue to increase cash flows which can remain in business. And it brings us parity to pay that page something. Yeah. More time and attention.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Yeah.
We appreciate the time and effort it takes for all of you to come and join us. Any questions for Jesse? Great, I want
Yeah, of
to
course.
come and see your general store.
Oh, you guys are all more than welcome, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like,
Coffee generally wraps up at 3.
are you also at the mail? Are you also at the post office?
No, so that's the Jericho Center store, which is
Oh.
Jericho is really bizarre. It has like 5-pound centers, which is a little strange. So we are,
Hamlets.
yeah, we're I like the Hamlet. Maybe there's something up in it.
They're Hamlets.
Yeah.
It's Sculpin Woods.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, so there's the town center, which has Jericho Center store, where off of 15, which is like the business district, I guess. So it's nice. So you can park at the Red Mill, do a hike. Get Joe's if you want food, come and get a beer, keep going, get Snowflake chocolates, get a creamy.
I think we've had a visit.
On side of a month. Yeah, but if not other options. Yeah.
Thank you so
Of
much.
course. Thank you.
Darren, I see you have joined us on screen. Welcome. It's good to have you. We're hearing all the brewers clearly in a row. Boom, boom, boom. Welcome.
Muted, can't hear you.
You are muted, and Kara, if we could make him full screen, that'd be great.
Oh, there we go. Okay, is that better?
Yikes, we haven't had anything. Oh, right.
Oh, boy, there. You just saw your finger really large.
Yeah,
Oh, gee. Oh, I can see myself on your screen now.
you too, which is great. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Introduce
So-
yourself. And tell us
Yeah.
what's awesome on this bill.
I'm Darren Orr. I'm the co-owner at Two Heroes Brewery and Public House in South Hero, and obviously here to talk about Section 6 of H921. And like Jesse, I can kind of shorten this up a little bit, allow some more time for questions. But we started our brew pub in the Lake Champlain Islands in South Hero and Grand Isle County. And I started with my business partner, Matt Bartle. He runs the kitchen. I run the beer side. We started in the winter of 2021, so right smack dab in the middle of COVID. We were in a tiny little rental space because we couldn't get financing during COVID, as you can imagine. So the plan from the beginning was to build a building and get into a larger new building. And we were eventually able to get financing, and we moved into that new building in the summer of 2023. So the building process during COVID took an amazing amount of problem solving, persistence, rules, regulations, all that good stuff. And at the time, we were like, nothing could be harder than this, right? Little did we know until we started self-distributing. So as Emma mentioned, under the current 3-tier system, on Title VII, the liquor laws, breweries can't deliver their own product to market. We have to start a second company unless we want to sign with an existing distributor. So by that time, Matt and I had already formed 2 companies because we owned the real estate for the brew pub and we owned the brew pub. So the real estate encompassed one company and the brew pub encompassed another company. And we started a third company to distribute the beer. So we're at this point, we're now running 3 companies. doing the books for 3 companies. Luckily, only one company has payroll. So that saves a little bit. And as Emma mentioned, the distribution licensing is around $1,200 a year. So we were paying $1,200 a year for our wholesale license, or well, still are paying, I should say, because we still self-distribute with our own distribution company. And we distribute under 100 barrels a year. So companies like Baker and Farrell are distributing millions of barrels of product a year, and they're paying that same $1,200. So that was kind of like in the beginning a red flag for us, like this isn't really fair. So obviously there's other things involved here where you have this separate company that is not allowed to be tied to your brewery legally, even though that company is being run by the same owners as the brewing company. So it can get complicated when you're delivering beer. My distribution company doesn't have any employees because I don't have the payroll capacity or the time to have employees that are solely employed by the distribution company. So if one of my brewery employees was to deliver that beer, that would be against the law. So myself and my partner, Matt, have to be the ones delivering the beer. If we want to move money from the distribution company to the brewery, which obviously we occasionally have to because the profit from the distribution company has to go back to the brewery because we need it at the brewery to run the brewery. If we want to do that, we have to write a check to ourselves, deposit it into our personal bank account, withdraw it from our personal bank account, and then make an investment in the brewery. So there's a whole lot of details like that we were just finding extremely unnecessary. If we were able to directly invoice our wholesale customers through the brewery, we wouldn't have to do any of that. Far less paperwork than we were experiencing. So, and then you have, Emma mentioned this, the distribution company needs insurance, you have to do the books, you have to do the taxes, you have to do the reporting. So amazing amount of paperwork. It's essentially double the paperwork to self-distribute. So the reason that we didn't sign with a distributor, and I think some of this has been mentioned a little bit, is that just like Jesse, just like Lucy and Howe, Two Heroes is very small. We're probably a little bit bigger than Lucy and Howe, but not much. So when you hand your beer off to a distributor, they need 20 to 30% in order to do the work that they have to do. And we just couldn't afford that. And we also felt, as many small breweries do, that when you're this drop in their portfolio, they're not going to be able to give you a lot of marketing and a lot of sales representation because they're focused on their big brands. You know, Farrell's focus is Budweiser because that's what they sell the most of. It makes sense. So if you're a drop in the bucket, you're not getting a lot of exposure from them. Being a Vermont brewery helps because you're local. But otherwise, it's really hard for them to focus on the small guys because they're not money makers for them. So, and I will say that if small breweries feel that they're misrepresented by large distributors, it is not the fault of those large distributors. I mean, they're just delivering the beer, they're doing their jobs. The market now is rapidly shifting, and the work that the large distributors do is getting harder every day. They have taken on so many brands that they just don't have the time to put towards tiny little brands that aren't profitable for them. So it's not their fault. It's just, this is what is happening in the market. And like we talked about with the closure of 3 distributors recently, and those distributors were specifically giving more time to smaller brewers. So what we have left is, you know, the largest two, which makes the situation even harder. So we just feel that because of all of this and the timing and the shifting markets, this is really the time to get this bill done. So the current system as it stands, which we've been dealing with since we started, it isn't really sustainable. It doesn't really reflect what's working in the majority of the country. And all of our neighboring states have passed bills like this already to help small brewers. So breweries here in Vermont play a huge role, and we drive tourism, we support agriculture, we support our local communities. Just in our pub, I mean, we're like the place to go and hang out and see live music, meet with your friends, meet up if you're driving to Plattsburgh. It's a midpoint. So we've kind of built that reputation.
Yeah. Good to know. It's where we can meet Mitzi,
Yeah, right?
the alumni club.
Yeah.
Meet up there. Thank you, Darren. Anything else? We appreciate all of you sending in your testimony. Really terrific. It will all get posted. We also got some testimony from another brewer at Cousins Brewing, so which we got last night. So, any questions for Darren? Great. Thank you. And did you?
Yeah, thank you.
Your testimony probably tells us how much you distribute on how many extra.
Yeah, it does say in there, we only distribute around 100 barrels a year, which is pretty small.
Right. Great. Terrific. Okay, great. Thank you very much. David Keck. We are going to welcome David from the Vermont Grape and Wine Council.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
It's good to see you again, David. Yes, we can.
Likewise.
Hear you.
Thank you so much for having me on, and I apologize for doing this remotely. It's a very busy time in the vineyards, as I'm sure you can all appreciate. For those I've not met in person, I'm David Keck. I own and operate Stella 14 Wines in Cambridge, Vermont, and also the legislative liaison for the Vermont Grape and Wine Council. Also, and I've actually not really mentioned this in the past, but I think it's pertinent to some of the discussion today. I, in 2016, received my diploma as a master's sommelier, which in the context of this conversation, a large part of that certification is studying and understanding national and international wine and alcohol laws as they pertain to basically every aspect of the industry. So that's a bit of my history.
I thought as a master's sommelier, you were going to give us a pitch for our culinary institute, reestablishing culinary institute.
I would be more than happy to discuss that as well. So the section of this this bill that is of importance, I would say, to the grape growers and to the Vermont Grape and Wine Council is really section 2. Well, 2 sections, I guess. Section 2, and then page 5. So discussing kind of the something that we worked on together in 2023, the great irony of working on changing the pour levels for tasting rooms was that we lost 90% of our production in 2023 to the frost in May. So we ended up closing our tasting room. But this legislation is still super important to our industry and to supporting the grape growers in the state. So the discussion and the verbiage that we came up with in 2023 has returned to this omnibus bill, which is increasing the number of ounces and the way in which those ounces of malt, vinous, and spirit can be poured in a 4th class tasting room. For us, a huge part of this had to do with the fact we couldn't receive a 1st class license, being a tasting room in the town of Jeffersonville, but not at our manufacturing facility and not in a facility that could receive a full health license and restaurant permit, essentially. So being in a rural location, as most grape growers in this state are, a huge part of our business comes from the local community. Obviously, we all thrive, and today is an important day for the tourism industry in the capital and that whole discussion. We benefit tremendously from tourism and from people coming into the tasting room to taste our wines. But a lot of our sustaining business, and a lot of the sustaining business for any small industry in Vermont, is from the local community. And so once they've been in and tasted our product, until we have new products to offer, a huge amount of their return business has to do with the ability to come in and develop community and enjoy a glass of wine as opposed to a flight of samples. We've talked about this in the past. I know that it's been discussed quite extensively, so I'll sort of leave that at that. I know that Deirdre also submitted testimony, written testimony.
Deirdre's given us terrific testimony, yeah.
Which I agree, obviously. We discussed sort of all of those points together, and I think we're all in agreement on those, but happy to take further questions about that, about the numbers that we came up with, and those numbers were discussed both in this committee and with the Department of Liquor and Lottery in 2023, and I think it got sort of held up in the House, but this is now past the House, so hopefully we can continue moving this down the road at this point.
We are hopeful for the same. And I'm just trying to be reminded of the section, I think over section 2.
Correct. It is section 2, which is page 2 in the bill that I have here.
It begins on page 1, but yes, it's for licenses serving in other license limits. For everybody outside of the room and in the room, we just need to know where we are in the bill.
Absolutely. So I think section 2, number 1A, or down at section B, and then small I.
Yeah. Do we call those Romanettes? Romanette 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Our great Tucker Anderson, who is our legislative counsel on all things vinous, malt, and spirituous.
Amazing.
So
before moving into the next section, are there any questions about that with the committee?
I mean, as you have pointed out, we have discussed this before, and it's good to have you back on a regular basis. And good to move forward on this. I think I'm supportive of this section, and I don't have any questions, but my committee members. Anybody else have a question on this section? I think we're good. We're good to go.
Excellent. Great.
Right. And Deirdre's testimony is also very, very strong. She's she's a force of vinous energy.
She is a champion.
She's one of our great writers on the whole wine industry here in Vermont, and has received accolades for all the books she writes and articles. And she's just a huge advocate for our wine industry. So.
And she is currently, I believe, in the process of finishing her next book. So you'll pardon her absence today as well. The second section that we'd love to bring to your attention is section 6. And then article 2, which is really has to do with parity with vinous producers. It just reads, a licensed manufacturer of malt beverages or vinous beverages may operate up to 2 licensed establishments. And this has to do with the first class license, which is allowed at a manufacturing facility. And actually this, to give an example, Deirdre is in a perfect situation to be an example for why this is important, as she has 2 tasting rooms, one at their manufacturing facility in Barnard, and then another in West Addison. And they are only able to have 1 first-class license, which allows them to do full tastings and dinners and all of the amazing hospitality that they contribute to the community. But they're only able to do those in 1 location. So this really is about creating parity with the malt producers in this section of the legislation as it exists. And as I said, Deirdre's testimony, I think, speaks to this very clearly. I'd be happy to answer any further questions, but I think the rationale behind it is fairly clear.
Yeah, I would agree. Perfect.
Great.
Thank
Then thank you so much for taking the time. And as I said, happy to answer any questions on either of these sections and provide further testimony. But I think in the interest of time and moving this along, I will pass it on to the next speaker.
Great.
Thank you.
David. I don't know if Jen's having some family challenges this morning. I don't know if Jen is
Not here right now, so
she's
just.
okay. So Jennifer Kim was going to join us. As you know, she's the there she is, right on. Oh, very well coordinated, I have to say. You have a great assistant here. Good time.
Director.
Jen's not able to join us. She had some family health issues she's having to attend to.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
So Wendy, if you would be kind enough, and maybe Ryan, if we have some time, we can hear the briefly from Ryan, but I think we're scheduled to do next week. Is that right?
Whatever you'd like, Robert.
Yeah.
I haven't reached out yet, but
We
that's
haven't.
the plan.
That's the plan. But if we have time today, we're happy
I
to.
brought it just in case.
Welcome Wendy Knight. Welcome Commissioner.
Wendy Knight, Commissioner of the Department of Liquor and Lottery. Nice to see you all again. I will be brief. You've heard from a lot of the stakeholders. I think of this as an economic development bill. This is probably a decade in the making. So it's a good that it's in the Senate Economic Development Committee, because that's really what this bill is looking to do, right? It's creating some parity across the alcohol beverage sectors. Some of that historical legacy is because decades ago in Vermont, we didn't have a thriving wine industry. We didn't have a thriving cider industry or spirits industry. And so the laws were written specifically to support the craft brewers. And it was really to support the craft brewers against the big beer companies, right? We were trying to create a thriving craft brewing industry here.
We have been very successful.
Yes. And so
just as we all are so down on everything, we celebrate this.
We've done a great job historically. And then what we're responding to in this bill is the market conditions, right? You've heard about the consolidation in the wholesale tier, which is creating a lot of problems for our small manufacturers. And also now we have a thriving craft spirits industry and winery and cider makers and even low alcohol RTDs, right? So the first thing we see with this is that it's creating some needed parity. You see that in the different provisions. The other thing it's doing is that it's expanding market access. So we've heard a lot about Tide House. Tide House is basically to prevent the financial control along the sectors, which is wholesale, manufacturers, wholesale, and retail.
This bill doesn't really deal with Tide House.
No, well, it's basically people. The fourth class license is an intentional decision that the General Assembly has made in concert with the department over years to allow manufacturers to have a fourth class license, for example. So something to just clarify with the fourth class license in this bill is right now we have 20 fourth class licenses are
just remind us, because remember, we don't live in this space all the time. Fourth class license
is allowed for a Vermont manufacturer. So a Vermont manufacturer, whether you're cider, beer, wine, spirits, you're allowed to have 20. That's 20 fourth class licenses. And those are tasting rooms and farmers market permits. And the reason is we're getting our small manufacturers access to consumers. You're allowing them to sell their product. You're allowing them to have samples of them with tourists and Vermonters alike. So that already exists. What this bill is trying to say, let me clarify the number. So we have 20 fourth class licenses allowed. Only one of them you are allowed to sell and serve products other than your own. Okay. only one. And at that only one, you are only allowed to serve 5 other products. So there's no rhyme or reason, there's no public safety reason why there's only one and only 5. So in the discussions we've had since the fall, well, I would say that some of these discussions predate, they're, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. The idea is they would like more access, right? They would like to sell their products and have more availability, people to experience it and have that brand experience. So this bill calls for an expansion, not just one tasting room where you can have products other than your own, but 10. And the number of products that you're allowed to have can be unlimited except for spirits because we're a control state. So that's the idea behind expanding the 45 license. You've heard from the brewers talk about self-distribution. I would argue that you do not have a sunset. I think that is going to make it very complicated for the brewers. Right now, the only option if they want to self-distribute, you've heard that, they must purchase a wholesale dealer's license. They have to purchase a wholesale license, just like Baker and Farrell have to purchase a wholesale license. The brewers, if they want to self-distribute, buy a $1,200 wholesale license. So if we're going to allow them to self-distribute, which I think makes sense, you all seem to think that makes sense. To put it for a 2-year sunset, what's going to happen from a business perspective is those licenses get renewed in April. So they're in the process of renewing them right now. Let's say this bill gets passed in July. The department will work on arrangement to obviously prorate those licenses. But then you're going to require 2 years from now them to then potentially renew their wholesale license. If you're not going, it's not guaranteed that you're going to sunset it, then they have no choice but to get a new license, which is usually in April, while you're deciding whether to sunset it. I think it creates an administrative burden that's pretty unnecessary. I don't understand that there's not, from our perspective, a public safety reason why you would need to sunset it. So that was the only.
So that, and it's complicated. Reading the language is so slightly complicated too, because So section 7. So it's just section 7, 9, and 10 that are.
I noticed there was a sunset date. I thought there was a sunset date. I know you all talked about it.
I think it's brought up in committee.
It was, and I would be great. Rick's not with us. I don't know.
Yeah, so I think
it's just sort of, I'm not clear on it. I don't think.
Well, that's why
clear in it, right?
Legislative council to clean this up, right?
Yeah. So you would argue that we have no sunsets on the special venue serving.
No, that's not.
But that's also involved in.
I'm talking about the self-distribution.
The section 6, but section 6 doesn't.
I don't see an actual.
I don't see a
Okay,
sunset
great.
for section.
Great.
Section sunsets it. You look
Section
at section
thank you,
7,
yeah.
it sunsets section 6.
Okay, got it. So section 7 is the one, because it does have a sunset of 28.
Yeah,
because
because you
the
look at the effective date.
Yeah.
Yes, no, I see it, but the A is more complicated and involves 9 and 10, so.
So
Right.
that's my suggestion, is that you not create a sunset. The other
Was there a reason that the House put sunset in?
Yeah, that's good governance, I believe, is their question.
It's great work for us in the future.
We could also, you give us a report every year. You annually update us on how
yes,
things are
we
going.
do. I just think it's unnecessary. It creates an unnecessary administrative burden on the part of the brewers and frankly us, although that's fine. We're happy to issue license, but we get questions and it doesn't make sense from our perspective. There's no public safety reason why you would sunset it. The other thing that occurred to me this morning as I was driving in is if we're talking about parity, we've forgotten that we have a new alcohol beverage sector, and that's the low ABV, the ready to drink spirits beverage. And that's not included in the self-distribution. So we might want to consider that if you're allowed, Vinus and cider already have the ability to self-distribute. Now we're saying that brewers should have it, totally agree with that, but we're leaving out the newest sector.
But it's ready to drink involves spirits. So I would rather,
No, it's not. It's a whole separate category, Allison, right?
but it
Madam
does
Chair?
involve.
If that's fine, I'm just raising it
Yeah.
as a parity issue. It's a separate category. It's low ABV, the same ABV. Remember my little, show and tell, the can of cider, the wine, the beer, the low alcohol ABV.
So where
ready to
there's
experience.
parity is in the AV.
Correct. They're the same ABV, and that's why we're allowing them to be distributed in the private sector. All I'm saying is, if we were really wanting parity, we've forgotten about that other sector.
And did they discuss that in house?
No, just occurred to me as I was driving. No one's raised it. and
Yeah,
they
no one's raised it. I'm just curious
I'm
from
thinking
the
about-
distributor's point of view, given that that's such a growth industry, how the large distributors we will hear.
Yeah, I mean, you have limits, so thousands.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yes.
that's kind of summarizing my testimony. Do you have any questions?
Perhaps, I mean, I know Jen has raised these issues. Can you help us address the alchemist concern?
Questions?
I don't have her concerns with him.
Okay,
I did follow up with, the Tide House. I know Tide
right,
House
because that
is
is
raised a lot, and that's sort of what I'm getting to is that there are no Tide House concerns from the department's perspective in this bill. The legislature over the years has made exceptions to manufacturer license, retail. Right, so manufacturers, suppliers are currently allowed to have a retail, they're allowed to have first and third class. Brewers have those exceptions in terms of first and third class, so part of that is giving parity for the wine makers.
no, I think this bill is a parity bill. Anything else? Any questions for Wendy? Right,
Great, thank you.
terrific.
Always a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to be here.
Well, it's always
You
good to
all.
have you here. We have 7 minutes. Would Brian, you'd like to speak?
I have written testimony that I was prepared for you for next week. I have it with me. I probably couldn't riff it through in 7 minutes, but I'm happy to answer any questions from the wholesale side, and I'm also happy to come back and go through the whole thing. That's my point.
I'm ready to move this bill out of committee, so if you got anything important to say before that happens.
I could do my best in 7 minutes, and you can cut me out if you'd like.
Join us.
Okay.
And I think we have,
That's just me.
no, I think that there's strong support. I think the house did a good work, and I think the only thing we would discuss is the volumes, but I don't think that, we have bakers. Come join us. Thank you.
Senator Clarkson, you were in the area when I started my career at Longfield Brewing Company with the founder. Sorry, Rob, you were.
You began as a brewer and now you're just.
Well, I am not a brewer. That's a brewer.
That's
I've managed Sucky Mix, but and the 14 star. So I was prepared to speak to the 3-tier system in general, which I can do that here, if you'd like me to.
Yeah, and I'd also encourage you to speak to section 6 and the 3-tier. That'd be great.
Sure. And objections, if you have any major concerns with this bill, that's why I thought I'd like to hear from you now.
I am here in full support for my friend Emma who testified today. I'm in full support of everything that came here
Well,
today.
introduce yourself.
Thank you.
Don't forget.
My name is Ryan Shake. I work at Barrel Distributing. I'm a member of the Vermont Wholesale Beverage Association. It's obviously an honor to be with you. I started in this industry back in college. I have 25 years of experience, mostly in leadership roles across breweries and wholesalers. I worked throughout the system and hold great respect for all parties. I also taught 2 courses at UVM's Business of Craft Brewing program, wholesale management and annual business planning for small breweries, which is a lot of pride in helping. So Faro is an independent beer distributor licensed by both federal and state governments to move bottles, cans, cases, and kegs for brewers and imports to shelves, stores, and restaurants, neighborhood bars in a safe, transparent, and accountable system, which is really what the 3-tier system delivers. We're also a little unique. We also have a full wine portfolio. We also sell a lot of non-alcoholic beverages such as sodas and teas, kombuchas, and all sorts of stuff that I make like that. There are 3,000 of us across the country. I'm actually heading to DC next week to join all of them for the NBWA Legislative Conference, where we get to go and brief our federal delegation on what we're doing here locally. Three-tier system is what that is. Suppliers, which is breweries, distilleries, wineries, distributors like us, like Baker, wine merchants, and there's retailers, of course. I've got a great retailer right behind here, So independent beer distributors do more than just buy, store, sell, and deliver beer. The gentleman's testimony earlier talked about how that's what we just do. We don't just provide service. We're a true partner to our breweries and to our retailers. We are small business owners, we're civic leaders, we're parents, we're active in our communities. The system ensures traceability. If there was ever a suspected problem with the product, distributors could quickly act and pull that product on the market if there's ever a recall, and that does happen. It also certainly protects American consumers throughout the state. General adherence to regulation, sanitation, and safety protocols is critical that our system enforces. And the result is a broad selection of genuine consumer choice. We are not in the soda business. If you go to Hannaford and Shaw's or Price Chopper, you see the soda aisle. It's just racked with 2 different brands, right? If you go to the alcohol section, there's more choices than you can possibly imagine. That's what the three-tier system does. It provides this vast majority of choices. Barrel Distributing was the first wholesaler licensed after Prohibition, so we've been around for a little while. We are a 4th generation Vermont business, quality service in the community. We had 290 employees on payroll this morning because I checked, and it spans all skilled roles from vehicle maintenance, delivery drivers, to positions with less formal certification requirements, like folks that merchandise, folks that build pallets and put them on trucks. We regularly offer training opportunities, upskill our employees. We have over 100 certified system-owned certifications, which means that our team is very smart to be able to go out and speak to the breweries in the industry that we represent. In-house sign making, temperature controlled warehouses. We have a 90,000 square foot temperature controlled warehouse in Burlington alone. Daily fleet maintenance, over 70 trucks that we have to maintain. Certainly increasingly costly data and cybersecurity, which has now come into the realm of which we have to manage. 2016, we completed a major renovation in South Burlington, adding about 30,000 square feet. And in Rutland, recently, we won an award from Efficiency Vermont, recognized our efforts with a new HVAC system, which has no coolant, it's all CO2. And we didn't have to turn our heat on in our warehouse until Thanksgiving, which was pretty cool from the replay team. We are deeply embedded in Vermont's communities. During the pandemic, we worked with 4 partners to dispose of 7,000 kegs of beer that were no longer sellable when all the restaurants shut down. We work with Aqua Vitae.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Big party.
It was a big party, but we turned it into hand sanitizer. And in any other world, I would have gotten fired for having to dump $250,000 of beer. And I bought all of it back through a hand sanitizer program that we had donated back. Under the state house, actually.
Right, but we still have bottles of Bar Hill.
Okay, yeah, that was our partner, Bar Hill, too. Yeah, well, it still works.
We still have it, and it's still, people use it all the time.
One of the gentlemen talked about some of the bigger brands that we represent. I want to also, I think it's important to say that our bigger brands that we represent provide a lot of meaningful representation of Vermont. You mentioned Budweiser. We are a proud Budweiser house. Anheuser-Busch has invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in local community to support and get the local initiatives. We have wineries that have sponsored the Burlington Discover Jazz Festival. We have folks that have supported the local cancer center here. So big brands provide a lot of really good resources for us to get behind. We operate in a challenging market. 2025 was a really challenging year for us and for the folks sitting to my right and on the screen here. Across all 3 tiers: population demographics, housing shortages, heavy reliance on the tourism sector, all contributed, and some just different ways in which consumers engage with alcohol, which is changing, and that's okay. But the cost to manage hundreds of employees, 2 large warehouses, massive levels of perishable inventory, insurance, rising healthcare, and a large rural fleet, with margins that are also compressed on our end. When you talk about 20-30% margins, to be quite honest, it's the same margin that it's been for 30 years, and it's challenging to operate all the different types of things that we have to do on the same margin too. So I totally hear what Jesse said and what the other folks are talking about. It's a very hard market to manage, and that's why the flexibility that they're asking for should be granted. Vermont has a significantly higher local craft beer market share than most states. Senator, you mentioned we should be celebrating that. We absolutely should be celebrating that. We are. There's really not anybody even close to us on our representation of what we've been able to do locally in a small state.
And in a relatively short period.
In a relatively short couple decades. Yeah, no doubt about it. So that success has been shared. An economic survey that I conducted for Peter Welch many years ago. We represent close to 40 Vermont manufacturers, between beer, wine, cider, and some local water companies. So our Made in Vermont portfolio represented over 500 jobs, and we collectively bought over 500 Vermont businesses. So local is a huge part of what we do and how we do it. To think about the fact that we represent national brands and all those local brands and make it all work is a testament, I think, to 300 employees.
Can you put that in a percentage?
So if I was going to put it into a napkin math percentage at the moment, I would say our local portfolio probably represents somewhere between 20 to 25% of the business, which is significant. You think about also the national brands, yeah. Our breweries face the same challenges we face. They're just on different scales. And I know all sides of the scales. I know the small scale, and I know the largest scale. None are easy. I have worked and managed Vermont breweries, understand what it means to manage cost of goods. I know what it's like for a supplier to call you and change their terms on you. I know what it's like to manage payroll and promotion for a small business. So we want our local manufacturers to be as sustainable as they can. It helps the system. Emma spoke to it earlier, I believe, where starting on your own, seeding the market, and eventually coming to a distributor with a proven brand, consumers that are following. It's kind of the way that the ecosystem has been successful over the years. So we have no major concerns at all. Understand the desire to reduce burdens for smaller breweries. Again, I mentioned we want them to be successful. We see value in breweries starting on their own. That helps them understand the market and build direct retailer relationships. We cannot represent every brand. Those are business decisions that we have to make. Do we have styles that are not represented? Are we simply just at our max capacity? Because we also have to be honest with ourselves. Can we manage any more than we currently have? And there's ebbs and flows to years that we bring in and acquire a lot of brands. And there's years where we're kind of, we're kind of holding tight because of the way that the market's structured. And right now, we haven't had any kind of major new brands come into the market. Doesn't mean that we're not constantly having conversations, because our doors are always open to any brewery that ever wants to come in and talk about potentially partnering.
So Ryan, just on that, the 3,000, I mean, if 20, what impact does this section 6 have on that 20 to 25% of local distribution for you? And is this I know you had impact on moving the initial proposal from 5,000 to 3,000. If you'd share with us, I mean, that still has you distributing some of our larger breweries product. How to just talk to us about it. I mean, here you support the bill, which is great. How will this impact your business?
Well, I wouldn't say it's really going to impact us at all. We work with small breweries.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, we represent some really small breweries. We've represented some really small breweries that are now big breweries, and that's the power of the 3-tier system. I mean, when I think about Jesse mentioned Zero Gravity. We started working with Zero Gravity when they were probably selling a couple thousand barrels of beer. They're making a lot more than that now.
And you're still distributing.
Absolutely. So we are balanced. It's just like managing your money. You have to have a balanced portfolio, and that's what we can continually kind of strive on. And there's been many times, Senator, when a small brewery has wanted to work with us, but we have said no because we didn't feel as if maybe they didn't align with kind of how we do business. Or simply maybe we just didn't feel as if we could give them the time and the energy that we could. So, the national average for a craft brewery is pretty small. It's like 1,000 barrels. So, at the end of the day, if you're brewing 3,000 barrels, and you're delivering 3,000 barrels, you're not doing that in a Subaru. You're real legit. It's your warehouse, your forklift, you're multiple people on payroll. So
I think this is helpful, because I think we're hearing that this isn't going to have a huge impact, that you are supportive of the bill, supportive of Section 6. And Thomas, do you have a question before we say thank you to Ryan? Because this is great. And Ryan, if you get us the testimony so we can post it, that would be great.
From your industry perspective, do you have any opinion on not sending this to sunset in 2028?
And the first time I heard that, I would agree with the commissioner.
So, the only reason I think we don't have our ledge council with us. I think that is an amendment I think we'd like to make to the bill before we be voted out. Do we have? Great.
Yeah, he's joining right now.
Okay, he's joining right now. Great.
It seems worth to not have the sunset, if I might add, because if they're gonna start to distribute 3,000 barrels, that's some heavy investment you're gonna put into that process.
Well, understand, Senator, to get to, if you're a 500 barrel brewery and all of a sudden your goal is to get to 3,000 barrels, that is a major lift.
Yeah, it's looming on the horizon.
That is a major, yeah, you certainly have to plan for it, but just because of the way that the market is currently kind of sitting at with, beer in general has been declining. Craft beer, market share has lost a little bit. It's still a very strong category. It's one that we're still investing in every single day. But to go from 500 barrels to 3,000 barrels is, yeah, you'll have to plan for it. You'll have plenty of time to plan it.
David, and then I'm gonna check, and we're gonna ask
Can
Rick.
you just react to the main 30,000 barrel?
Yeah, I think that if anybody is brewing 30,000 barrels, then they're one of the lucky people in the country.
Oh, I get that,
Yeah.
but your reaction as an industry to that number, like why 3,000 was 5,000, now
sure,
3,000, Maine's 30,000, it's 10 times.
It's a good place.
Yes,
I start.
It 3,000 feels like a good next step, and I'm sure that if that's successful, and there's a handful of small breweries that have been able to grow their business to that level, I'm sure we'll be back here, and I'm sure there'll be another discussion about the next cap.
Yeah, as you know, we meet on this every year. We always have a miscellaneous booze bill, as we commonly call it. And so we review these laws as does the commissioner and the DLL. So I think that we have ample time to review, see how it goes. She reports to us every year. The brewers report to us on a regular basis. They have good lobbyists. And so I think, Rick, Ryan, I think we're to one last parting shot because we're going to move on, and I think we're going to talk with our legislative counsel who is joining us remotely today. Any parting shot? You okay?
I'm okay.
Thank you for doing this on the spot. You can stay right there because that's the only seat in the room. So stay right there, and Rick's going to join us from Rick.
Good morning.
Good morning. We're thinking of, I think there's some thought that we would like to remove the sunset that's at the end of the bill or section 6, which is contained in section 7, I believe.
So delete section 7 and get rid of the reference to it in the effective dates.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah. And I just also think because we didn't, I believe, put possible vote on this, I'm going to just I'm going to let us maybe take this to next week for a vote in case there's anybody who hasn't testified and would like to. I'm just putting that out there in the universe. I think we will try and vote on this once we have a new draft from Rick. Rick, is there anything else you had thoughts about on our booze bill on H 921?
So Rick Sagel, Office of Legislative Counsel. No, and I will remind the committee, this is, Tucker's bill covering for Tucker. He's back next week. So I think it would be beneficial. I don't mind, making this amendment, but having him double check to make sure that there's no collateral damage, as it were, in deleting these sections. So I don't have any other comments. I do want to make sure that I know what you all want. And I heard section 7, you want to strike that repeal.
That's the sunset for the distribution. But it also says removing the certified check requirement, but I guess that's just the title that's still there.
That is the bottom of page 5.
So feeding into the next. Got it.
Yes.
Got it. Sorry, because they're on different pages. It's but I'm also, could you just while we have you clarify section 9 at the first part of section 11, which is confusing to me. This section, could you just explain that a little bit?
So section 9 it is confusing, but it's the way we have to structure this. So and I'm looking down because I'm looking at a piece of paper, looking at the bill. So the section 9 is deleting, as the reader assistance heading above reader assistance heading above just explains. It's deleting the 2026 sunset of special venue serving permits for retail establishments. So section 9 is amending section 3 that is this strike through repeal of 7 VSA 254, the special venue. So that is the section, is repealing that repeal.
Right, and my understanding, this is basically a technical correction that this was never intended to be done for 2 years. So I just wanted us to be clear on that. And then section 10 is also reflects.
Well, I will also clarify. I don't know if it's a technical. I will trust you on that. I don't know if that's technical. I will also
from Tucker.
Also say on page 7, let's not forget that you're also deleting this section 4 that was also in this 2024 act, that 7 VSA section 2, the definitions. So striking that definition will be undone. Just want to make sure it's clear. Then section 10 on the last page is amending the effective dates in Act 156, the same act that we're amending in the previous section, by deleting that effective date of July 1, 2026, section 3 and 4, which are the previous two. So these two, I'm sorry, I'm kind of walking through this. They're connected. They are connected.
Right, and I appreciate your helping provide that connectivity. So I think let's wait for Tucker to be back before we vote this out. If anyone else feels compelled to testify before we do, but we'll aim to try and vote it out Tuesday or Wednesday.
May I say one more?
Yes, Ryan, go for it.
I wanted to just also just remind the folks that will be starting distribution businesses that Title VII alcoholic beverages, it's important they understand all those rules and laws, how to play, you can't do. And also I would encourage them, and again, I'm glad that Jesse's sitting next to me because I went to his place last week and right on his chalkboard, he clearly lists the date that his draft lines were cleaned. We have 7 people that travel the state that just clean draft lines to make sure that our retail, make sure barrel distributing lines are clean, sanitary. So I would just encourage folks that are also starting up distributing the beer and kegs to make sure they know and offer that service because it's important that they're watching.
No, I appreciate that, and I would assume, and we're going to look at Hannah. We are going to look to make sure everyone is well educated before they take on this additional responsibility and the additional cost. Right. So we'll look to vote this out next Tuesday or Wednesday once we figure out what we're doing with our agenda. And thank you all very much. This was very helpful and more to follow. Great opportunities ahead. Okay, Rick, stay with us if you would. Thank you, everybody online. Thank you, Darren. Thanks, David.
Culinary Center.
Oh, yes, on the culinary.
So wholesalers would be very engaged and involved because obviously the restaurant industry and resorts are our core customers. So if there was ways that we could help secure a pipeline to make sure restaurants are open and trained, we would be a part of that.
Ryan, we will be in touch.
Yes.
I'll be here one. Because we're also going to have to, if we do this, it's going to take planning.
But you have to take your risks.
I look forward. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you all. This was terrific.
We tried to hide it.
I got to help you with the culinary.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. Ryan just shared his interest in interested.
Hi.
Great.
We need restaurants open.
Oh my God, we need a pipeline for those restaurants to be open. Okay, we have 15 more minutes with David, and then we are.
Okay.
Great. Rick, are you with us?
Thank you.
John, Julie.
Yes.
So we're going to just pivot. Could someone close the door, please? Woo. Thank you very much. A guest who is kindly helping. Thank you very much. Very grateful. We are switching gears because another bill that we're hoping to vote out is our sister state bill, and we would love to take additional testimony today from people who have experienced the real pluses of having exchanges culturally, intellectually, economically with other countries and other provinces. And I thought of our friend, Judge John Dooley, who for many years was very involved with our sister state activity with Petrozavodsk in Russia. And so, John, we thought you would be a terrific person to lead us off. Oh, there's Susan as well. So we have Susan and John. John, it's great to have you. Thank you for joining us on sort of a short notice, but thank you very much. And take it away. I think you've met us all before. I think do you know David and you know Randy? Johnny, are you there?
Yeah, good morning. Let me see if I can do this. I realize you have limited amount of time. Let me try to give it. I've read the bill.
Yeah. Right.
I understand what's in front, what you have in front of you, and what the House has passed. I must say that I think this is a good direction. And as you said, I did this kind of activity with numerous regions actually in Russia, in rule of law related kind of activities and issues. As your chair pointed out, Vermont had a longstanding sister state relationship with Karelia, a region that's on the Russian border with Finland, about a couple of 100 miles north of what's now St. Petersburg and was Leningrad Oblast. It was actually created from the Russian side. They were approaching the time at which they essentially the Soviet Union fell apart. There were some people in Karelia who were very interested in reestablishing relations in the United States, particularly a woman who was actually born in the United States, whose family moved to Russia, the Great Society, they thought, although it didn't work out the way the family wanted. She still thrived in Karelia and became the president of one of the universities in Petrozavodsk. But she was from Minnesota, so she started establishing relations with Minnesota, found a way to establish one with Vermont, persuaded the Karelia side to invite Vermont into a sister state relationship. It went to Madeline Kunin, who said yes. And she visited. They signed the agreements to do it. And one of the first groups that ended up coming to the United States as a result of it was a group of lawyers and judges. And they asked if there was some kind of joint relationship we could do to work on rule of law kind of programs. I had recently joined the Vermont Supreme Court at that time, and I thought that was a great idea. I had long been interested in Russia. We actually tried to go to Russia and couldn't get a visa to get in. So this looked like an opportunity to do something that was of interest to me. And the major thing that happened that enabled this to occur is that the Soviet Union fell. The United States Congress passed a law with lots of money to try to help Russia become essentially a Western democracy. And one subject they wanted us to help with was rule of law. And we had, of course, started our relationship with the sister state relationship and with the group that came, including the chief judge of the Karelia Supreme Court and the Minister of Justice and a number of lawyers. And that looked like an interesting thing to do. It happened, and this was something that gave us a lot of a chance for doing it, is that the agency that was responsible for most of the implementation of the Congressional Act was USAID. Yes, the USAID that doesn't exist today. and from my experience, I think somewhat sadly. But in any event, USA did put out a RFP for a provider to do a rule of law program in Russia, and it was won by Associates of Rural Development in Burlington, Vermont. That couldn't have been better luck for iDesire to get some money to establish the ongoing relationship to do it. So with the sister state relationship, we went forward designing programs over almost 20 years with Karelia. We spread to 8 other regions, partnered with 8 other states. Some of which had pre-existing sister state relationships, some of which established them only on rule of law activities all over Russia. For example, we had one of the regions that we got to do this and was able to get funding for was between Alaska and Sakhalin. Sakhalin is an island off of the eastern side of Russia. Far away as you can get from here. But of course, when you wrap around and you're talking about Alaska, not that far from Alaska. So we were able to get that sort of activities. We worked on many projects. I think we accomplished many things. I think it was a success. And as I say, it ran almost 20 years. It finally ran out of gas when Russia kicked USAID out of Russia. And so the major funding source declined, and we couldn't continue to do the programs we did during the time. I think what the world thought was going to happen is that us Americans were going to go in there and try to tell Russia to create a legal system like America. In fact, that's not what happened. I learned as much from the Russian side and how they did things, despite the fact that it wasn't a country known for its civil rights. Then I think anybody learned from us, and we were able to do a lot of joint programs that were learning experiences for both sides of this. And we ended up with a whole bunch of, within the court systems in the United States, a whole bunch of people very interested in Russia who are regularly relating to regions in Russia and doing joint programs with them. And I think that was a good help for Russia, but also I do think it was a good help for the United States. So that's my quick story. I'm happy to give you.
It's a good, quick story. And as you know, but nobody else knows in this room, my dear husband, Oliver Goodenough, joined John on a couple of these trips. And it was an extraordinary experience, I think, for everyone involved. So I'm heartbroken that ended, because that was a terrific, the Vermont Law School benefited, Vermont benefited. Our students benefited. It was great.
Yeah, the Vermont Law School, which had participants from the faculty, established a legal clinic in Petrozavodsk, the leading city of Karelia, and that was the first one in Russia. And they became the source of how to do that, and it spread all over Russia, just like American law schools pretty much now all have a clinic kind of arrangement where students are providing legal services.
John, do you know if any of those clinics have survived?
Yes, the clinics have survived in Russia for sure.
Oh, that's great. Well, so that's just terrific. Well, thank you. That's very helpful. Anybody with a question for John before we, okay? Given our time is tight, particularly with keeping David here, I would love to hear. I think we have 2 people. We have Susan and we have Allison. Are you Allison?
I am.
Allison, come join us. Because Susan, we're lucky enough to have close by, but you have come to us from Hartford, all the way from Hartford. Great. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for allowing me to be here.
would you just introduce yourselves and tell us about your experience with exchanges and the importance of having a sister state program?
My name is Alice Litton. I live in Wilder, in Hartford, teach at Hartford High School, in White River Junction. I've taught there for 3 years now. Prior to that, I taught French at the Marion Cross School in Norwich, pre-K to 6 for 20 years. And I am a member of the Hartford Sister City Committee. We do have a sister city in the south of France. And we've had multiple adult exchanges. Every 2 years, they host a festival where they welcome delegates from their 9 sister cities. So there are delegates from Senegal, Portugal, Spain, Turkey, Morocco. And so all of us were able to connect. And one of the things that we've been thinking about is how to broaden the relationship to think about businesses, because that's the foundation of an economy and of a nation. My personal experience, in addition to going there with the town of Hartford, was I took 3 students from the cosmetology program at the Hartford Area Career Technical Center. And we welcomed 3 students from the technical center there who were specifically cosmetology students. And interestingly enough, none of the 3 students from Hartford, from HACTC spoke French, but they were all crying on the last day. And obviously in a lot of relationships like this, there is a huge linguistic component, but these girls were all just touched and moved, and they were doing each other's hair and they were sharing so much. It was an unbelievable experience. And so I was in Sinon in November for this festival. And so my goal now is to think about ways that we can connect with a high school that's not specifically a technical center. My first trip there in 2018, the city of Sinon is a suburb of Bordeaux in the southwest of France, and Bordeaux is a pretty significant tram system. And there is a tram named after the town of Hartford that runs on the tracks in Bordeaux. I have yet to see it in operation. I cut the ribbon to inaugurate it in the garage, sat at the driver's seat, but unfortunately have not seen it in my subsequent visits there. That was an incredibly exciting time. One of our select board members accompanied the committee, and it was a very, very special time. My colleague at Hartford High School, Thatcher Hinman, who teaches German, has an exchange that's been in existence for, I think he told me since 2012 with a German school. Welcoming students here, sending American students over there. This year looks a little tenuous for that, but he is actively looking at creating a relationship, hopefully with a town in Quebec. So I think one of the things that I think is so exciting about this idea is the broadness of it, this idea of a state, because there are so many possibilities. I mean, Hartford is rural, and there's plenty to do, but it doesn't seem like what one would think of as a sister city. But Sinon had the opportunity to pair with a town in Texas as their American sister city, and they said, no, we don't want to do that. We want to do Vermont. So it was an active decision on their part to partner up with us. So I think,
do you see some of these smaller sister programs feeding into and getting coordinated through a bigger statewide sister state program?
I would love to see that. I mean, I think
because if you're talking about economic development, which is of course our bailiwick,
right?
That's a great opportunity, I think, for us as we look at these smaller programs.
Yes, and so when I was there in November, I went with 2 lenses. One was the educational lens, but then also thinking about the economic piece. And they have a really interesting work sort of internship program for high school age students there. And so thinking about kind of merging those 2 ideas, the education piece and the economic piece, I think could be really fascinating. So Martha Deese, who's the world language liaison at the Agency of Education. I saw her at a conference on Friday and she reached out to me about this and I said, absolutely, I would love to go talk because I find it just in a world that's becoming more divided, we need to find ways to connect.
Good work.
So,
Well, thank you. This is really terrific. And thank you for being so willing to do this in such a short fashion, short time frame. So we really appreciate it. Any questions for Allison before we? That's very helpful. And I hope you stay engaged with this as we hope to move this forward.
I would love to in any capacity. I would be thrilled.
Well, stay tuned.
Yes, I can leave my card with you so that you have it.
That would be great. Okay. And given you and I are in the same county, it's very useful.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, this is great. And thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Oh, this is great. I'm also hoping that we will be voting this out next week as well. And if not, maybe we can vote it out today. But we'd love to hear from Susan. Do the quick. Yeah.
Apologies, but I have to go down.
He has a meeting and so across the street. So
Well, I'll skip the spoiler. We support it.
we're shocked.
But we'll see. Hi everyone, it's Susan Evans-LaFleur, Executive Director of the Vermont Art Council. Happy to always talk about ticket resale, but also happy to shed a little light on the many other things that the Arts Council is involved in across the state. As I noted, we're fully in support of the Sister State program. I had the happy opportunity to be part of the Sister State Working Group over the past 2 years. And that group really worked together to develop something that we think will work here in Vermont. I don't know how often you hear this, but it was a great working group. It was a really wonderful thing to be part of. ACCD did an amazing job managing it. Everyone brought their skills and expertise and really a willingness to learn. We had the opportunity to learn from other states. And we focused on creating something kind of realistic, responsible, impactful. And our recommendations for the program, I think, really lean into an effective use of a public-private partnership in a meaningful way. I also wanted to note for this committee specifically that there's important attention to detail in there to ensure that the Sister States program is aligned with national regulations and on international engagement. The final report, you may have seen that, which included an internal review process. I thought you would all be interested to note that we recommended that the internal review process include a comprehensive check against federal and international sanctions lists, specifically the U.S. Department of Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, sanctions list, and the State Department sanctions and restricted entity lists. We really felt that when it came to economic development, the Sister State Working Group believed it was vital for our partners in this to be upholding values that we support in our own democracy and economy.
Absolutely.
So I could list all of the ways that Vermont's artists and arts have benefited from international exchange over the years.
Do we have currently have a fairly robust exchange program?
No, not a specific one, but we of course have touring artists who travel here a lot. I would note that touring artist visas are getting more and more challenging to receive.
Sadly, true.
In this moment, I'm part of a national group that's looking at that, and it is very complicated. However, the Vermont Youth Orchestra Association has previously toured their orchestra. Their first tour was in 1990, and it was an exchange tour to Yugoslav. They also had conversations, you may have heard about the Sister State program in Tottori, Japan. They played for the Tottori delegation when they came. And I think as you've heard from many sectors, Sister States are a great start to these partnerships that really benefit students. There's also an important piece of this that has the opportunity to benefit tourism as well. You know, people from Sister States visiting Vermont. There was actually a research study published in the Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Management in 2020 that looked at the economic impact of exchange programs like this. And they found that there could be significant and direct economic benefit through tourism if the program defines that as an outcome. And that was one of the things that we talked about in the committee. There's other states we've learned from that just have fascinating partnerships too in higher education. The College of Charleston in South Carolina has a Sister State scholarship program. They offer half-off tuition to students from South Carolina Sister States. So it's kind of like an endless way to do this and build on the great things that are happening. We're fully supportive of this. We look forward to bringing more artists to Vermont and creating opportunities for more Vermont artists to be traveling, including student artists as well, to regaining experiences around the world too.
Right. Thank you very much. I I think my sense of the committee is that we're very supportive of this. We've all seen the benefits of this, and I just, both, as you heard, my husband went with John to Russia, and that was very impactful. And I have been on an exchange with, well, not really an exchange, but gone to Taiwan for this kind of learning opportunity, and certainly am very eager for us to develop more economic development ties with Taiwan as a result, and have trying to get that moving forward. One of my questions, and it's one that the director of our international trade program has raised, I feel that until you're set up and established, that the bill calls for quarterly meetings. I think that makes sense for the first year or two. How do you feel, Allison and John? I feel that probably makes sense until it's set up and going. And then, of course, you could limit it. The board, the council would run itself, and so figure out how often it needed to meet. But until you're up and going, it strikes me that quarterly meeting keeps you on track, keeps that energy flowing, and keeps you on track.
I think so. And it really was determined based, I mean, the role of that committee would be to vet kind of applications coming in, which would involve a Vermont nonprofit who wants to do it, an idea to start it. There will be some initial outreach
to do here, and further organizing.
Exactly. And that process will be, there are all the partners who were involved in the working group are committed to continuing it, including working with the Vermont National Guard and their international programs. Yeah. They had some ideas about starting points, states that we've worked with. I know Tim from ACCD had some ideas about things that are already in the works. Yeah. Again, using this as a way to build on the good things already happening. And that there is an important role for a partner organization who would run it. We had many conversations about funding. There are other states that fund these programs robustly, right? There are other states where there's a lot of private funding. We kind of assessed this and knew kind of the outcomes we wanted and the reality of what we are working with here, of what's possible.
Well, so this year in particular is very lean, but it is not always thus.
That's good. I'll keep that in mind for future years. So yes, I think that as long as ACCD is committed to driving this, they say that they are, and I want them to be, that sounds great. I mean, they've really, especially Tim Strapp has really taken the big lift on this and really driving the program. I think for it to be successful, you need that administration commitment and commitment of time and resources and human capacity that can really drive this from the state side.
Yeah, great. Thanks. I think I'm going to touch base with Tim, but I'm hoping that we can move this forward next week and vote it out. Right. But I want to, I've been in email contact with Tim, and I just want to touch base with him again. But thank you all. This was terrific. Josh, are you here to talk about Sisters Day?
I'm not, but it's fascinating to hear.
Great. Any questions for Susan on this piece? Great. On other pieces, of course, we have lots of questions. Thank you very much.
Answer those things.
Thank you very much from Hartford. We really appreciate it. I think we'll go offline. That would be great.
Did you do that?
Okay.